Welcome friends to my SMR. Today I'll be reading the 12 animals of this Chinese Zodiac, traditional fables in Chinese and English, so there's going to be an English and Chinese writing. Of course, I do not read Chinese, I'll only be reading in English, however you can read the Chinese if you'd like, and let me know if anything's different from Chinese to English and English to Chinese if you know both. I love the Chinese Zodiac animals. I've always been obsessed with them, so let's begin. How the 12 animals won their places in the Chinese Zodiac. In Western culture, a good way to show your relatives and friends that you care about them is to remember their birthdays. The Chinese do the same thing by remembering people's birth years. That's because the Chinese have a zodiac that gives meaning to each birth year, which makes a Chinese person feel special. In traditional China, everybody was considered to be 1 year older on Lunar New Year, as though they all just had a birthday. The Chinese way of remembering birth years was invented by the legendary Jade Emperor. He came up with the idea of a zodiac cycle of 12 years, each one represented by a certain animal. If you can remember which zodiac animal a friend belongs to, then it's easy to figure out the year he was born and then his age. People born 12 years apart, or any multiples of 12 years, belong to the same zodiac animal. For example, the year 2020 was the year of the mouse. So everyone born in 2020, as well as in 1996, 2008, 2032, and 2044 belongs to the mouse. After the Jade Emperor decided on a cycle of 12 years, he had to think of a way to choose 12 animals to fill the 12 spots in the zodiac. So he decided to hold a contest at the set date and time. All the animals who wish to be chosen by the Jade Emperor may present their best selves in front of his palace. The cow, a diligent animal that always got up at the crack of dawn, was the first one to arrive that morning. But along the way she came to a creek. The mouse ran right behind her and asked if he may hitch a ride on her back to cross the creek. Being big-hearted, the cow said, "Sure, hop on." After crossing the creek, the mouse decided that wasn't enough. He wanted to get a free ride for the rest of the way. Again, the cow agreed. From early that morning, the Jade Emperor waited in front of his palace for the animals to arrive. When he saw the cow approaching, he was ready to name her the first animal of the zodiac. But the mouse immediately saw an opportunity. He hopped off the cow's back and landed right in front of her. The Jade Emperor was so impressed with his cleverness that he named him the first in the zodiac. The big-hearted cow was bumped down to second place, which she didn't mind at all. Close behind them came the tiger and the rabbit. The Jade Emperor was very taken with the tiger's stripes and the rabbit's perky ears. So he named them number 3 and number 4. By this time, quite a few other animals had arrived, and the crowd was beginning to gather. This made the Jade Emperor realize he'd better slow down and really look over all the contestants. As he looked up, he saw an amazing creature that looked a bit like a snake, only much bigger. Its head was like a lion, its body had scales like a fish, and it glided through the air without wings. The Jade Emperor called him to come forward to introduce himself. "Your Majesty, you have never seen me before because I am not from the animal kingdom. I was invented by the Chinese people. They named me the dragon." The Jade Emperor found him so charming that he not only placed him in the zodiac immediately, but also asked him if he had brought a relative along. When the snake heard this, he quickly slithered forward and said, "Me, I'm the dragon's godson." And that's how the snake became the 6th animal in the zodiac. With only half of the spots remaining, all the animals in the crowd began to get nervous, and some of them started to get pushy. But the Jade Emperor caught sight of the horse and the sheep bowing and making room for each other to move forward. Their politeness so impressed the Jade Emperor that he chose them to be the next two animals of the zodiac. The monkey had a late start that day, so she was at the back of the crowd, but she was the most clever and nimble animal at the contest that day. Catching sight of a cloud floating by, she leaped up to grab the edge of it and swung herself to the front of the crowd. This amazing act made everyone, including the Jade Emperor, drop their jaw, so that's how the monkey won the 9th place. At this point, the rooster let out the loudest cock-a-doodle-doo of his life. The Jade Emperor realized that he could use someone like that to wake everybody up in the morning, so the rooster was named number 10. This gave the dog an idea. He stepped forward and offered to guard the Emperor's palace, and that's how it became number 11. By now, with only one spot left and so many wonderful animals competing for it, the Jade Emperor really didn't know what to do. So he blindfolded himself and went eeny, meeny, miny, mo. When he opened his eyes, he was shocked to see that his finger was pointing at the pig. But being a man of his word, he calmed himself and said politely, "What the heck, Piggy, you deserve this as much as anybody else." Many of the contestants were disappointed that day, but they were all good sports about it. After all, the 12 animals that won spots in the zodiac did put on a great show for everyone. To honor the 12 winners and to thank the many more losers, the Jade Emperor invited everybody into the palace for a big feast, and everyone had a fabulous time. How the mouse turned his friend the cat into a mortal enemy. We all know that mice are afraid of cats, but they were not always that way. Before the zodiac contest, the cat and the mouse were best friends. When the contest was announced, both of them became very excited and began making plans. The night before the contest, the cat wanted to get a good night's sleep, but was afraid she wouldn't be able to wake up in time. So she asked her friend, the mouse, to wake up in the morning in exchange for carrying the mouse on her back. The mouse thought this was a good idea, a good deal, because he usually stayed up through the night anyway. But the early next morning, just as the mouse was about to go wake up the cat, he thought, "Cat might beat me in the contest," so he decided to let the cat sleep late and miss the contest. On the way to the contest, the mouse hitched a ride with the cow, and they ended up being the first and second ones chosen by the Jade Emperor. Before long, all 12 places of the zodiac were filled up. Afterwards, the wise Jade Emperor invited all the animals that showed up for the contest to a party, so that those who did not win would not go away feeling too disappointed. Meanwhile, the cat slept on and on and on until she was finally awakened by the rowdy animals returning from the big party. When she realized that the mouse had tricked her into sleeping through the contest, she was furious. Then, when she found out that the mouse came first, she wanted to catch him and tear him into bits. Right then and there, the cat and the mouse became mortal enemies. To this day, the mouse carries a guilty conscience and runs for his life whenever he sees the cat. What kind of music would cows appreciate? Over 2,000 years ago, there was a musician in China who enjoyed playing music out in nature, and he wondered if the animals enjoyed hearing it. In modern times, he was we have scientists who do experiments to find out the effect of music on animals and even plants, but this was rare in ancient time. This musician played a string instrument called 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮. People loved his music just as much as people today love Yo-Yo Ma's cello music. On a beautiful spring day, he brought his 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮 to a field where cows were grazing and started playing for them. Pretty soon, people dropped what they were doing and gathered around him, but the cows continued grazing, as though they didn't hear a thing. A man in front said to the musician, "You are wasting your beautiful music on these stupid cows. How can they understand music?" The musician replied, "You may be right, but maybe I'm not playing the right kind of music. Let me try something else." Then he started playing a strange tune that sounded like a calf's braying. The crowd of people thought the 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮 had suddenly gone out of tune, and some of them covered up their ears, but almost immediately all the cows perked up their ears and started shuffling around as though they were looking for their calves. Soon they all trotted toward the musician and then stood still with their ears perked. Everyone was amazed to see the effect of this strange music on the cows. The musician thought to himself, "Wow, cows do understand music. As long as I understand cows, I can make music they want to hear. How wonderful. I must start making music for other different animals as well." That day, the musician kept playing the music that sounded like braying calves. He got better and better at it, and pretty soon it became mellow and acquired a rhythm of its own. By this time, those who just didn't get it had left. Those who stayed became captivated as though they had entered a new musical wonderland. How the tiger lost his mind. Once upon a time, in a deep forest, there lived many lovable animals. Life should have been good for them, but in fact they lived in constant fear of a ferocious tiger. Whenever an animal disappeared, everyone knew that it had fallen into the deadly claws of the tiger. No one was as strong and fierce as this tiger, but there was one, the fox, who was smarter. This fox knew how to hide from the tiger, but he couldn't bear to see his friends disappear one by one. So he came up with a daring plan. One day he strolled along the tiger's usual path, humming cheerily as he went. Suddenly, the tiger pounced on him. Just as the tiger was about to sink his teeth into the fox spoke up. So you think you can eat me just because you are the king of beasts? Well, I am the king sent down by the heavenly emperor. Whoever eats me will have to answer to him." The tiger couldn't believe what he had just heard, but the fox's self-assurance made him hesitant. In that moment, the fox knew that his plan was working, so he puffed himself up even more and said, What, you don't believe me? Just follow me and watch everybody run for their life when they see me coming." The tiger wanted to see this for himself, so he agreed. So the fox trotted ahead with bold steps while the tiger tiptoed behind him. As they walked through the woods, all the animals ran for their lives. When they saw the tiger coming, thereupon the fox turned to the tiger and said, "See, didn't I tell you? Sure thing." "Sure enough, Your Majesty," said the tiger, for he had no idea that it was he and not the fox who had scared all the other animals. So clever, so clever. Ever since then, all the animals knew they were safe as long as they stayed close to the fox. As for the tiger, his tiger nature did not change one bit, but he has learned to stay away from the fox's neck of the woods. How an old rabbit saved her forest friends. There once was a beautiful forest where many different animals lived, including chipmunks, snakes, monkeys, owls, foxes, and rabbits. They lived together like one big happy family. In this forest there was an old well. Once a bunny looked in it and saw another bunny. Thinking that this bunny could be a playmate, he jumped in and drowned. Since then, all the animals in the forest taught their children to stay away from the well. One day the forest became a dangerous place. A lion discovered this beautiful forest with all his favorite prey to feed on. So he moved right in and declared himself the king. All the animals were terrified. The elders of the forest decided to bargain with the lion to keep the forest as safe as possible. The lion came right to the point. As you all know, lions are ferocious hunters, but I'm nicer than other lions. I only need to eat one animal a day. If one of you would sacrifice yourself each day, I promise to spare your babies. This was still a terrible deal, but the elders felt it was the best they could do. After the lion left, the elders formed a circle and made this decision. Since they were old and would die soon anyway, they might as well be the ones to be sacrificed. So they agreed to draw lots each day to decide who would be the lion's meal. That's terrible. Then old rabbit said, since I'm the oldest and I don't have children to care for anymore, I'll volunteer to be the first meal for the lion. All the others started to cry. Then she added, I'm sorry to make you sad, but thank you for agreeing to this best possible solution. When old rabbit arrived at the lion's home, he was huffing and puffing from having run too fast. Before the lion could pounce on her, she said, I saw another lion on my way here, so I ran with all my might so I wouldn't be killed before I could reach you. The lion was shocked. What? I thought I was the only lion in this forest, and I would be the king. Take me to this other lion and I'll show him who is king. Old rabbit led the lion to the well and told him the other lion lived in there. The lion looked in and roared at his reflection. He became really furious when the lion in the well roared back, so he jumped right in to attack it. And that was the end of him. Old rabbit was declared queen of the forest. After she passed away at a ripe old age, the well was turned into the rabbit memorial, and you can still see it there today. How to make dragons come to life. About 1,500 years ago, there was an artist in China famous for making animals look alive on paintings. The emperor hired him to paint 4 dragons on a wall at a temple. He finished the job very quickly. When a crowd gathered to admire the wall, everyone said the dragons looked so lifelike that they could practically fly off the wall. But when the emperor took a close-up look, he noticed that the dragons had no eyes. The artist explained that if he put on the eyes, the dragons would really come to life and fly away. The emperor didn't believe him and insisted that he add the eyes. As the artist picked up his brush and started adding eyes on the dragons, dark clouds loomed overhead, followed by gusts of wind, then a flash of lightning, and a clap of thunder. Then the 2 dragons that had been given eyes started wiggling on the wall, then soared up into the stormy sky. The emperor was amazed. Stop, stop, he shouted. Don't put eyes on the other 2 dragons. Soon the storm blew over and the clouds cleared. When the crowd looked at the wall again, sure enough, only the 2 dragons with eyes remained. Wow. Can this story be true? Well, it is true that there was such a wonderful artist who painted all kinds of creatures, including dragons. The part about dragons flying off the wall can't be true, but we call it a metaphor rather than a lie. A metaphor is a colorful way to say something. So putting eyes on a dragon actually means putting the final touches on a piece of art to make it come to life. In writing a story, you can use this metaphor to mean ending the story with a perfect finale. In describing a great teacher, we might use the metaphor, she can light a fire under her students. Then, when a student answers a question perfectly, this teacher might say, "You hit the bullseye. Now, can you make up a metaphor of your own?" Would you save a snake from freezing to death? There once was a farmer who lived in a village with his wife and 2 children. He was the kindest man in the world. Not only was he kind to all his friends and neighbors, he was also kind to troublesome people and even vicious animals. On a frosty winter day, on his way home from working in the fields, he saw a snake curled up on the side of the road, frozen stiff as though it was near death. He picked up and put it inside his jacket to warm it back to life. When the snake revived and regained its strength, it promptly bit the farmer on his chest. The farmer stumbled his way home and collapsed just as he entered his cottage. Alas, the snake turned out to be poisonous. As the farmer lay dying, he said to his family, "It's too late to save me now, but learn from my mistake. Be kind, but think twice before you do a kind deed for someone who might be vicious." Dear reader, we don't like this tragic ending, do we? So let's rewrite the second half of the story. Please read on. Arriving at his cottage, the farmer gently laid the stiff snake near the warm fireplace. When the snake woke up, it felt hungry and looked around for something to eat. Soon it saw several puppies huddled around the family dog in the corner of the room. As it slithered toward the puppies, it let out a threatening hiss, which alarmed the farmer. Seeing what the snake was about to do, the farmer ran for his axe and quickly chopped off the snake's head. As the snake lay dying, the farmer said, "I am set to kill any living creature, but if you are so harmful to others, I should never have saved you." Then he turned to his family and said, "This was a valuable lesson for us all. Be kind, but think twice before you do a kind deed for someone who might be vicious." Can losing a horse bring good luck? After 2,000 years ago, about 2,000 years ago, more and more Chinese people moved to the northern frontier of China. Here they came into contact with the nomadic tribes that roamed the area. Sometimes they lived side by side peacefully, sometimes not. In one of these frontier villages, there lived an old man who had only a son and a horse as his family. One day his horse disappeared. Everyone thought it either wandered over to the nomads area or was in fact stolen by the nomads. The old man's friends came to console him, but they were surprised to hear him say, "How do we know this is not a blessing in disguise?" Sure enough, a couple of weeks later, his horse came home, bringing with it a sprightly mare. Now, everyone thought the horse had gone off and found himself a mate, so they came to congratulate the old man. But the old man replied, "How do we know this is not a tragedy in making?" Just a couple of days later, disaster struck. The old man's son loved to ride horses, but the mare had never been trained. When the young man mounted her, she reared up and threw him to the ground. He hurt his right leg snap, then felt a shooting pain. Alas, this accident crippled him for the rest of his life. The old man's friends again came to console him. This time they were not too surprised to hear him say, "How do we know this is not a blessing in disguise?" A year later, war broke out between the nomadic tribes and the Chinese Empire. The Chinese emperor called all the able-bodied young men in the village to fight the nomads. Many of them died in the battle. The old man's son, crippled from his fall, did not join the war and lived on. To this day, when trouble befalls a Chinese person, his friends may remind him that it may be a blessing in disguise, just like the old man who lost his horse. why bother repairing the fence after the sheep are already lost? Once there was a shepherd who lived at the edge of a Chinese village. He was not so bright, but his kind neighbor, a carpenter, was always willing to help him. The shepherd had 1,000 sheep, and he counted them twice a day, once in the morning when he took them out to pasture, and once in the afternoon when he brought them home. One morning he was surprised to find that there were only 11 sheep. He went to ask his neighbor, "Did you happen to see anyone sneak into the pen last night to steal one of my sheep?" "No way," said the carpenter. "We're a small village where no one ever locks the door. Did you check the fence to see if it's broken anywhere?" The shepherd just wanted to find his lost sheep and didn't think checking the fence would do any good. The next morning he discovered that another sheep was gone. When it happened again on the third day, he told his friend that he would ask the other villagers if they saw anything. That's when the carpenter offered to come take a look at the fence. As they went into the pen, the carpenter noticed right away that there were some unusual tracks in the ground. After a moment of thought, he gasped, "Oh my God, these are wolf tracks." Then he noticed a few broken slats on the fence, but the hole didn't look big enough for a wolf to get through. As he got closer, though, he saw that a big hole was dug in the ground below the broken slats. "Wow," he explained, "this wolf is really sneaky. He made the hole in the fence so small that people wouldn't see it." Thinking that the wolf may return again that night, the two of them repaired the fence that very day. While they were at it, they extended the fence deeper into the ground so the wolf couldn't sneak into the pen anymore. Having learned the lesson the hard way, the shepherd promised himself that he would always listen to his friend's advice the first time around. How the monkey was doomed by his own pride. Sailors in ancient Greece often kept a monkey on board because monkeys were enjoyable company. The monkeys were happy with this arrangement because they got to see many interesting places around the Mediterranean Sea. Because they could climb easily to the top of the ship's mast, they were usually the first ones to spot the interesting things from afar. As you can imagine, these monkeys felt they were on top of the world and became quite proud of themselves. In fact, too proud for their own good. Sailing is a wonderful adventure, but in the bad old days, shipwrecks happened quite often. During the height of the Greek Empire, ship sailing from Corinth to Athens was caught in a terrible storm as it neared the harbor. The ship capsized and everyone was thrown overboard. The only way they could save themselves was to swim for land, and many of them did not make it. The monkey on the ship was lucky that a dolphin saw him thrashing in the water. The dolphin mistook the monkey for a man and quickly lifted him on his back to carry him to shore. To help his new friend relax, the dolphin started some chit-chat. "On your way home from a trip?" "Oh, yes," the monkey piped up. "I often sail to the other islands on business, and we just wrapped up a deal in Corinth. My family have been Athenians for generations. In fact, we were among the first families of our magnificent city." "Then of course you must know Piraeus well," said the dolphin. "Oh yes," said the monkey, thinking that Piraeus was some distinguished Athenian citizen. "He is one of my best friends." This reply from the monkey didn't make sense at all, because Piraeus was not a person's name, but the famous port city near Athens. The dolphin turned his head to look and was shocked to see that the person on his back was actually a monkey. Realizing that he had been tricked, he quickly dived to the bottom of the sea and left the bluffing monkey to his fate. Why the hen that laid golden eggs couldn't save herself. There once was a humble young couple who made their living by raising hens and selling eggs in the market. They earned enough money to get by, but they wished they could be richer. By and by, they noticed that the eggs from a hen named Blackie were bigger than all the others. They decided to feed Blackie more to see if her eggs could get big enough to sell at a higher price. Sure enough, Blackie started laying bigger and bigger eggs. One day, a miracle happened. The egg Blackie laid was made of gold. This continued for a week. The couple was overjoyed. Then they got an idea. One golden egg from Blackie is worth a lot more than the eggs from all the other hens. Why not sell all the other hens at the market? As the hens were being taken to market the next day, they ganged up and squawked. Don't sell us. You'll be sorry. Their pleas fell on deaf ears. As the couple became rich, they became lazier and lazier. Soon they bought a big house, fancy clothes, and a fancy car. They began wishing to travel the world, but they couldn't very well take Blackie along. One day the husband came up with an idea. Since Blackie drops one golden egg each day, she must have many more in her, enough to support us for the rest of our lives. Why not get all the gold out of her now, and we wouldn't have to take care of her anymore? The couple decided to carry out this plan the next day. Blackie protested with all her might, but it was useless. As the man raised the chopping knife, Blackie screamed, "You ingrates! You will get what you deserve!" Well, the inside of Blackie turned out to be no different from any other hen, just a mess of guts. Having sold all their hens, the couple had no way to earn any money, and their wealth dwindled quickly. Soon they had to sell everything they owned to buy food. In the end, they became beggars in the marketplace. All the villagers knew they had no mercy for their hens, so no one took pity on them. Are dogs really happier than wolves? Once during a drought in ancient Greece, a lean and hungry wolf came to town looking for creatures to eat. There he met a dog who looked like a distant relative, so he chatted her up. "Long time no see, my friend. How have you been all these years?" The dog was embarrassed that she didn't remember this old friend, but decided to pretend she did, so she replied, "Not bad. As you can see, I live in a nice house and my master feeds me very well. All I have to do is to guard the house at night. Like you. As for me, life in the woods is not bad. I can usually find plenty of game and feed on it, but it hasn't rained for 6 months, and all the animals in the wild are starving to death. So I came to town to see what I can find here. Since we're related, maybe you can give me some ideas." "No problem, my friend. Just come with me. I'll introduce you to my master as my new pet." Just then the wolf noticed a ring around the dog's neck, so he asked if it's a necklace. "Oh no," the dog replied. "My master puts this collar on me when I was a puppy. He put this collar whenever he takes me out. He puts a leash on it to make sure I don't wander away." "What? A leash?" cried the wolf in shock. "You mean you are not allowed to roam wherever you please?" "Well, you see, people who don't know me might think I'm ferocious. The leash helps everyone feel safe. Once you get used to it, you'd be happy to just go wherever your master goes." Phew. I'm so glad my ancestors didn't get lured into becoming a man's best friend. I would never trade my freedom for all the luxury in the world. With this, the wolf dashed back into the woods. The dog thought for a moment, then said to herself, "He's got a point. This might be what my master means when he says, 'You can't eat your cake and have it too.'" How Piggy learned an unforgettable lesson. About 1400 years ago, a Chinese monk went on a pilgrimage with 3 disciples. the clever monkey, the naughty piggy, and a fellow named Sandy. One day, trekking through a desert, the travelers became tired and thirsty. Monkey, who has a magic cape that could quickly take him to anywhere in the world, volunteered to go find a tropical fruit. He agreed to let Piggy tag along, even though he knew this would mean trouble. Sure enough, soon after they started, Piggy got tired and wanted to rest under a tree. There was no time to waste, so Monkey said, "I'll just go myself and pick you up later." Then he unfurled his magic cape and off he went. As Piggy settled down to take a nap, he saw a watermelon at the bottom of the hill. Then he noticed some wheel tracks on the ground. "Aha," he thought. "This melon must have rolled off some traveler's cart. I'll take it to the share with everybody right away." But on second thought, he decided to cut it open and eat his share right away. It tasted so good that he couldn't stop at just one piece. Before long, he ate up other 3 pieces as well. Suddenly he heard Monkey calling, "Piggy, I'm back." Alarmed, he flung the pieces of watermelon rind as far as he could. Actually, from above the clouds, Monkey had already seen what Piggy did with the watermelon. But pretending that he saw nothing, he said, "Let's go, Piggy. I've got plenty of tropical fruit for everybody." The 2 ran as fast as they could, but Monkey led Piggy along the paths strewn with the watermelon rind. Piggy suddenly went kapunk, and he fell on something slippery. This happened again and again and again. He fell so hard that he was covered with scrapes and bruises by the time he arrived. The monk was delighted to see Monkey and Piggy return with the tropical fruit, but the first thing he said was, "Whatever happened to you, Piggy?" Piggy was too ashamed of himself to tell the whole story, so he just muttered, "I learned a lesson that I will never forget." At that, everyone looked at him with a kindly smile. "Glad to hear it," said the monk. "Now let's all have some delicious fruit to celebrate." And that's it, guys. That's a beautiful story, isn't it? Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Good night and bisous.